The first activity was bringing young people in from village communities together with sort of by minibus and giving them some youth facilities in the country areas.
What was your first job?
It was the advice and information worker for the Rural Advice Project, which was a project which gave advice and information to anybody aged 11 to 25 across North Norfolk. We did the advice and information at the CAB, but we also branched out, like I said, to do it at colleges, to do it in other rural areas. We did it with the caravan and minibus. We then also branched out to do PSHE type lessons. So we went into schools delivering PSHE. We did a peer education project. So we worked with students at mostly Paston College and Fakenham College, and we got them to deliver sessions to high school students on sort of various issues that affected young people.
We knew we were good at getting older people in through the job, but we weren't getting younger people, and we knew there was an issue. The CAB I worked in was Holt, although I also worked in Durham, and we knew that there were an awful lot of people that we weren't reaching. So, and I think that's why Richard had gone to the CAB and discovered that we were wanting to target these younger people. So that was the beginning of getting this information, as it was then, out to the youngsters in North Norfolk, because there was nothing, absolutely nothing for them, hardly even a youth club, or a youth club would start for a year and then fail because there was nobody to run it. So we knew there was a need.
In those days, they did have youth facilities in the towns, but there was nothing in the villages. And and there are a lot of people who live in the villages, and unless their parents were prepared to run them into a town, and sometimes it can be quite a long way, there was nothing for them to do.
There was a massive need, and sort of lots of different. Perhaps it wasn't as we expected. It was a different sort of need. So there are things. Perhaps not the same needs that the CAB would see older people going for, but definitely other issues that were affecting young people's sexual health, things we dealt with, friendship, bullying, lots of family issues, homelessness issues, benefits issues, all sorts really. There was a lot.
So this was the first activity, and then not too long after it first started, the advent of the National Lottery came about, and we thought we'd apply for funds for that for what became Winston Court.
Well, first of all, it didn't present itself as the ideal building, a former telephone exchange. And there was some opposition locally because I think they thought they were going to end up with a hostel for offenders or for drug users.
When Winston Court was first mooted as a possible house for the homeless young people, which we hated that expression actually, but there wasn't much else we could call it. And the district council, I wasn't on the district council at the time, the district council fell over backwards to sort of try to make it happen. And then they granted planning permission for it, and then the local people around sort of, this sort of doesn't sound too good. So we decided we'd better have a public meeting. We had a public meeting, and I've never been to a public meeting like that before. It was horrible. You felt as though you sat on the stage, you were going to have tomatoes thrown at you. It was really horrible. And one or two people spoke very vociferously about it, and the other people spoke up very strongly. And I can't remember if it was a lady or a gentleman said, well, to the people who'd spoken against it, you should be ashamed of yourselves that taking this attitude. And none of us ever know what's going to happen in families. It doesn't mean just because you've got a bit of money that you're not going to have children with, who go off the rails and need some help.
Well, this was just as you would expect in any residential area. People were naturally nervous of anything new, and I seem to recall there was a public meeting, and I spoke at the public meeting, trying to persuade people that it wasn't quite as bad as they thought it was going to be, and see how it went over time.
It was the first supported accommodation centre in North Norfolk, and the first for the Benjamin Foundation, which opened the 8th of December 1997 as an 8-bedded service for young homeless people.
It was in a very good location. because it was on the railway line, it was in North Walsham. North Walsham is a former market town, as you know. It's the centre of a large rural area. There's a connection to Cromer on the train and Sheringham. So it was the right location.
And when Winston Court was first opened, we thought it might take a little while to get filled up, but in actual fact, it was filled within the first week. And we were a little bit worried because a lot of the people who were applying to had come out of the care background, but in actual fact it worked really well because they formed like a family and supported one another enormously, and it became really good. And Matt and Wayne were amongst the first employees, and I think they're still with the foundation, aren't they? And we're very, very proud of what they've achieved as well.
I think the Benjamin Foundation became aware through their sort of work, through the Rural Advice Project and going out into the rural villages and doing work there, it became quite evident that there was a significant number of young homeless people around in the North Norfolk area, in need of help and support.
What was happening is young people were being homed in Norwich, but because their peer groups lived in the North Norfolk area, they would gravitate back to this area and end up sleeping on somebody's sofa, or in some worst case scenarios in the summer, they would be sleeping on the beach or breaking into beach huts or under the pier. And that was a problem. It was certainly a problem in Cromer. So it was that was pushing us towards trying to find a more permanent solution, a local resource, not a Norwich resource, a local resource to meet the needs of young people in North Norfolk.
There was one lady who was been used as a punch bag by her father. There were two lads who were sleeping rough in a pillbox on one of the back streets in North Walsham. Some really, really sad stories. So I don't think it came as any surprise because research, we didn't just open it. Research was done beforehand to prove the need, and so we knew there was a need.
Over time, we've dispelled those myths and preconceptions that the people had through getting out into the public, raising a positive profile of Winston Court, being involved in local things that are going on, and the young people here, proving that they're not, as bad as people thought. And now we get quite a lot of local support on the Munsey Road. We get people dropping in, donating stuff, especially at sort of Christmas time, Easter time. After 18 years, we've been fully accepted into the local community.
It was quite interesting because Peter Rayner. Yes, Peter Rayner, who was then a district councillor, he was quite in opposition to it. But some years later he died, and I went to give a talk in North Walsham about the Benjamin Foundation, and his widow Sylvia was there. And she said, I speak to Peter every night, she said, and I tell him what's happening. She said, and he completely changed his mind, and he would be really, really proud of what's happened with the Benjamin Foundation and Winston Court.
Staff are really helpful and really nice, and they're just like one of us, and they help you to sort out your problems that you have before you move in and everything, and they sort you out to moving on, really.
They help me loads of ways, really, getting me on the housing register and getting benefits so that I can carry on with college. Everything really, they're just great.
They help me stop smoking drugs and basically stay out of crime and to get a bit of an education.
I think what I should emphasise, that our view of Winston Court, and we absolutely insisted that it would be staffed 24 hours, and it was a supportive environment. We didn't just want somewhere with a key, walk away. Well, it was a cheaper option to go for the just providing accommodation in inverted commas, but we wanted accommodation with support as the first step in moving on to more independent living.
It's been open for, we celebrated the 10th birthday a couple of years ago, so it must be about 12 years it's been open. It's got 11 beds. It's the same style as Winston Court, all under one roof. So there's lots of communal areas and individual rooms for young people. and we've also got 4 move-on flats, so young people can move on to them once they've lived with us for a while. There's support workers, and each young person will be assigned a support worker. It's 24-hour cover, but all our housing services have that 24-hour cover, which I think is fantastic, because it means young people, we can always offer a safe place. There's always somebody there.
I may have came here for my own choice, but I came here pretty much a mess, really. I had just come out of a really bad breakup. I was severely depressed. I didn't realise it at the time, but yeah, so for the first 3 or 4 months I was just inconsolable. I was like, oh, the world's come to an end, there's absolutely no reason for my existence, etc, etc, etc. And yeah, basically they just helped me by listening to me, vent my frustration, so to speak. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not all just doom and gloom. Although, to be quite honest, about 6 or 7 months in, to live in here, I did go through a period of time where I didn't want to be here anymore. But at that particular point, because I was signed up with a agency called Inges, they had access to a psychiatrist who specialised in depression, and it was through a combination of him helping me on it was a 6-week depression management course, and me basically bouncing the ideas that I've learnt off of him, off the staff members here, that I managed to just make sense of the fact that I wasn't the world wasn't going to come to an end. It's just simply a process of me grieving of some sorts and getting over something that had always been there.
And I think one of the real gems is it's not time limited very much. We do have time limited depending, but basically if somebody needs more time to get where they need to be, then we'll give it to them. If they don't, then that's great, they can fly on their own. And it's always very gratifying, as we have had recently, to have a letter from a parent who our Time for You service has been working with her daughter recently, to just say what an amazing change it has been to that individual. But it's taken a couple of years to achieve.
I was introduced to the Benjamin Foundation via my daughter's school, and it was Vanessa who came to see me. We were having some personal issues in her life, and the head teacher at Bacton Primary School thought it would do me some good to speak with somebody, and Vanessa came to counsel me. She came and visited me on several occasions to talk about the situation my daughter and I found herself in, which is, without going into too much detail, was a marriage breakdown. It was a shock. I needed some kind of stability, and she was very much that. Said some very reassuring words, some of which I struggled to believe at the time. Looking back now, I can see where she was coming from, and it all makes sense now. Right then, it was just someone to lean on and someone to sort of give me a hand up and suggest that things would be okay over time. And likewise, came and spent some time with my daughter as well. And just was there. It was just a person to help. It took me a while between the counselling and becoming a volunteer. There was a 6-month gap, I think there were thereabouts, but I felt I needed to get back onto my feet and get back into society. I was out of work when this happened as well, so there were lots of things to deal with. But then when I found myself ready to go back to work, I was actively seeking full-time employment, but I needed to get back into the work mindset, so I approached the Benjamin Foundation as a way of, I felt, paying back a debt. They'd helped me out in a really troubled time in my life, and I wanted to give something back to the Benjamin Foundation, so thankfully they allowed me in.
What did you do with it?
My background is kind of IT and administration and management, so there was some documentation work that needed to be done. I think it was quite key to other members of staff, and there needed to be somebody there to take that role on, and I worked with Teresa in the North Walsham office.
I absolutely love the job that I do, and there's no job like it, I don't think. working with young people, seeing the transformation, the transition that they can make, the difference that we can make to their lives as a foundation. Why have I stayed with the foundation? Because of its values, the way that it treats its staff, the values it has for the people that we work with. It's a huge family. Well, it's a huge family now. It wasn't so huge when I started. So yeah, all of those. It's a fantastic charity to work for.
I like working with young people. I like getting to know them. My previous job, it had been sort of very short term. Or this I felt really sort of starting, you watch the young person move in and you sort of watch their journey, and hopefully all being well, you would then see them move on flat in their own place, and it was really satisfying to know that they'd done that and that you'd played a little bit small part in that, and helped them.
I came to the opening of the wonderful new offices last night, and what struck me was how many people I knew. That workforce is loyal. They've been here for years. They've worked for the foundation. They've grown within the foundation. I mean, it really is staggering when you look at the senior management team and just how many of them have been here right from the very early days. It's great. You don't get that in business so much.
I've just really enjoyed the work. I enjoy the people. I think the young people that we work with, and my colleagues, the people who work for the Benjamin Foundation. It's a nice place to work, and there's opportunities. I'm very well aware of the fact that I've been given some fantastic opportunities, and they're there if people want them. And I think it's that, and it's encouraged. And I was encouraged, from being a support worker, I was encouraged by my manager, Wayne, to apply for another post. So yeah, I think there's something quite unique about that, because a lot of people tend to stay for a long time here.
I think it draws like-minded people. I think the charity draws like-minded people that want to do that sort of work and really passionate about what they do, and that's why I think it's such a strong charity. Originally, it was started by Richard at his house. He started collecting furniture and storing it in his barns for people who were in need of furniture. From that, it evolved into the resettlement scheme, got a garage in Fakenham, and then from that they decided there was a bigger need, hence Restore. Well, one of the things that I always really liked about it, my wife's a social worker, and she said one of the nicer things about the job we do is we're reactive. We don't have to wait for paperwork, things like that. If we get someone who comes through the door, we can see they're in need, and they've just got a flat, they've got nothing. We can say, right, okay, there we are. And the difference it can make to people's lives is fantastic. So, going from these people might get a flat and it has nothing at all inside, and we can go in and we can help furnish that top to bottom, beds, sofas, fridges, cookers, all those things. So make a flat a home. I really enjoyed being there at the start. That was really nice, and actually watching it grow. And the speed it grew as well, I think, surprised all of us, how quickly it sort of became established. And also, like I say, it's being able to help people. One of the nicest things we ever did was Christmas Eve, Steve and myself, we had a gentleman, and he'd just split up from his wife and had his son with him. And we were able to go to their flat Christmas Eve, give them furniture. And not only that, we've been given some toys and a pool table and stuff, which we gave to the little boy for Christmas because they had no money. And it was just so, that fantastic feeling walking away from that one, and they were obviously over the moon. It was lovely, and they still actually come in. Now the boys, I think he's 17, he's over in the Young People's Training Skills Centre over there. So we see him, but they come into the Norwich store still, so that's lovely.
I like going out and meeting some of our supporters who freely give of their time, their energy and money. And it's really nice to be with them and to demonstrate what we do. I try and take people that are using our services so that they can talk about their experiences. And that is much more powerful than me standing up and saying, this is what we do. Somebody who's lived it can demonstrate how the Benjamin Foundation has changed their lives.
We decided to support the Benjamin Foundation because they were a local charity, and also they were very personable, and they were also extremely generous with their help to us, and we think that it was a fantastic thing to ask people to support us, knowing that it was for children and young adults in the area where there's a huge need, especially with us being in a very sparsely populated area. We need somebody like that to reach out to everybody, in the smallest village to the biggest town.
I think the most rewarding thing is when we had one of our functions, which was a Strawberries and Bubbly at the local Horning Yacht Club, and they brought along some children that had benefited from the Benjamin Foundation, and they gave us a talk about their experiences, their situation, and it was really, really moving.
Could hear a pin drop. Yeah.
You could.
Well, I'd been the Bishop of Norwich for, I suppose, all of a week in the beginning of the year 2000 when Richard Draper exploded into my life. I was at Cromer for a service, and Richard was asked to talk about the Benjamin Foundation then. And I think two things struck me about him. One was the power of his story, really, you know, the death of Ben and what he and Vanessa had done as a result of that. And that struck a chord with me because, in a very different way, my wife and I lost a child, and we tried to turn that tragedy into triumph. And I think that's what the Benjamin Foundation is. Out of a tragedy has come a triumph of care and support for young people across Norfolk. So I was very pleased quickly to become the patron of the foundation. And of course it's the values of the foundation. It's what lies underneath it. It's its commitment to every individual with whom it comes into contact. It's giving everything heart and soul to the people who are there, which is at the heart of it. And of course, you know, I'm bound to say this, aren't I? But I made Richard a lay canon of the cathedral, and although this isn't a specifically Christian charity, you know that underneath it all, the ethics that it espouses are those of loving your neighbour and seeing God in everybody. That everyone is created in love, and we need to love each other, and whatever our circumstances. And actually, that power of love is the power of transformation in people's lives. And I've seen it in the work of the Benjamin Foundation. I've seen young people who haven't known much love feel that they are loved and cared for and valued, and that transforms their aspirations and the possibilities, and then that makes our society a better one to live in.
It's just so practical and so varied. I love the way that they help young families. Do you remember the...
I think that was one of the things that impressed me most when we first looked around all the various amenities, was that they were helping families, small children. Then I think there was a little place where the teenagers could go. It covered such a wide
problems of the young adult
area
as well.
Yeah,
and it's even to the effect that they also do after-school activities, so that parents who are really upset that children have to wait for them, they're doing things, and that's huge. And also they can drop the children off early. It's really cradle to grave.
Well, we found out on September the 24th, which happened to be my birthday, that we'd had an extension of 4 years funding, which was round about £470,000, which gave us that continuity and stability to run the service for the next 4 years for the community. We realised, over the last couple of years, there was a lot of focus on the young people, and rightly so, because there's not very much to do within this area of Thetford on the Redcastle Firs estate. But the community were also feeling a bit left out, so we wanted to include them more in what we were doing, because it's community building in the heart of the Redcastle. It's grassroots, so rightly so, we should be including them more. So that's what we've done, and opened a can of worms and created a monster, really, because it's become very successful. We've got as you can hear in the background, we've got a Warm and Well group for the old age pensioners of the area, and they're just, we've got 23, 24 in now, just having a full meal. It's fantastic.
When I've sat down and spoken to a few of the senior citizens, a lot of them do mix and they're quite outgoing characters, but some of them that come here don't go to any other groups at all. They don't mix with anybody. Some of them have got partners that are in care homes, so they've got quite an isolated life, really. So, they come and have a hot meal and socialise and have a bit of a laugh. There's lots of laughing in this place.
You were listening. Yes, it's different experiences you see that other people have that they share with you. So it's great. It's really great, yeah. And Mike and Alison and Kathy, who does the food, you know, they're a lovely group of people. I've been widowed now for nearly 23 years. My children are all grown, they've got children of their own. But people are busy. So I do tend to spend a lot of time indoors if I don't push myself to go out. It's not that much of an effort really when you think about it, but it's doing it. And you see people when you're out.
Because it's just something to do. And I was told about this place that it was fantastic. And of course the staff are great. And the people I've met so far, they're great as well. And of course I got my wife in Ford Place. So it gives me a break, because I don't get much of a break because I've got to look after her. But of course when I come here, that helps me to relax a bit more, because of the stress obviously I'm under. And then the people, they listen to me as well. I hear their problems, and then they hear my problems. So it just gets it off your chest.
And there's a lot of laughter, I would say.
Yeah, and there's a lot of laughter as well. Yeah, we just have it's a great fun really. Might only be an hour and a half, but it's still great really. That hour and a half makes a big difference really.
You know, we've started a mother and toddler group, or parent and toddler group, you know, and that kind of thing. Just from cradle to grave, really, we're trying to, you know, bring all the services and bring other services in here.
So I've been through the system and come out a better person. And as I said to a couple of the staff members, it's one of those systems whereby it's not a case of how do we improve the quality of the service. It's how do we judge the quality of the person who uses that service.
I work for a small organisation called Neon Tribe, and we essentially build and design websites. We work with charities, which is great fun. We work with commercial customers as well, and I'm a project manager there.
In the 18 years we have accommodated 280-ish young people, and actually accommodated at Winston Court. So yeah, that's huge. And also, as I say, you know, we still get 2 or 3 referrals a week, and those young people we just don't turn away. We try to give signposts, you know, help as much as we can. So that help and guidance spreads out to probably thousands in the 18 years. At any one time in our 6 services, we've got, I think I said, 80 young people accommodated. So that's continuous.